Hi, and welcome to Red Nucleus' session on driving compliance across end-to-end labeling. Today, we're going to talk to you about a couple of things, specifically keys to success with regards to labeling. But first, we're going to do a brief overview of who Red Nucleus is so you know who we are. Within the keys to success, we're going to cover process. We're going to talk about managing the complex compliance components that cover the end-to-end cross-functional global labeling. And we're going to do a brief overview of DirectusPRO, which is the Red Nucleus Innovative Labeling Solution. We're then going to cover briefly the Labeling Advisory Committee that Red Nucleus manages. So who are we? Red Nucleus is a trusted life sciences partner across the life sciences industry. We are the premier provider of learning, performance, and process solutions for life sciences. We work exclusively within life sciences to ensure our team ultimately understands your business, products, processes, and challenges. It's important for us to understand and have a deep understanding of what you do every day in order for us to be able to support you. Our team is composed of more than 240 plus full-time employees who are committed to the creativity, quality, and on-time delivery within our space. We're a global company. We are located in the US in 3 different locations: Malvern, Pennsylvania; Yardley, Pennsylvania; Boston, London, Pune, India, and Shinagawa, Japan. So now that you know who we are, let's do a quick overview of the keys to success within end-to-end labeling. Let's first start with the global labeling process. The process starts over here with all of the data that come in and needs to be considered as part of your company core data sheet. From preclinical data to clinical data, literature references and publications, safety and post-marketing data, all of that information needs to come in and be considered within your company core data sheet. That information is managed internally, and it's mandated kind of internally to really serve as that core sheet, data sheet, for all the other information in your countries. The CCDS is based on scientific data that is used to drive the components within your regional product information where the product is marketed. So you take your core data sheet information and then you push it out to your countries. And in this illustrative here, you can see that we have the US and the EU labels, and then other regions maybe potentially go off of that. Your other regional labels may also go directly off of your company core data sheet. This information has to be approved by your regional regulatory health authorities. That information is also being changed by pushing down kind of from the CCDS, but also from information coming from the region specifically. Your health authorities in each of the countries are requiring certain changes or certain requirements that may not be required in other countries. Similarly, you may have manufacturing, CMC, or other technical changes that impact your regional product information that must be considered. All of that information needs to come back up and feed back up to your company core data sheet, at least as an assessment. You need to consider whether or not you're going to take those changes to your company core data sheet or make the decision that they actually don't impact your company core data sheet, but rather stay with just the region. To add to the complexity of the process, you have to look at the governance structures. We have your executive labeling committee, your labeling team, your country-specific labeling representatives, all of which have to work very closely together and make sure that the communications and handoffs between all of these individuals is seamless and transparent to ensure an effective and efficient process. So a well-established global labeling process really has to have that operational excellence component, compliance, and traceability. And we'll talk a little bit more about these. But from an operational excellence perspective, we just talked about that business process, data-driven, well-written CCDS and RPI that is vetted with those key stakeholders in a timely manner. From a compliance perspective, consistent and up-to-date scientific, medical, and administrative information across your product labels submitted to the health authorities. And then from a traceability perspective, you need to be able to be visible to the data, clear and accurate labeling content from both safety and efficacy perspective, supporting information, and the history of changes made, and be able to report on that confidentially, with confidence that you know where that information is come from. To add to that complexity, when we look at that tracking across the end-to-end, let's look at this image here. We start with a signal, and you detect that signal. You have to confirmation of that the signal, whether it's a safety signal or not, and then a decision made to update your CCDS. Then you go into your CCDS portion of that, and you have to update that CCDS, internally review it, approve it, and disseminate it. All of those dates should be tracked. From a local label perspective, you want to update your local label, internally review it, approve it, and submit it to your health authority for approval. Once you get to the health authority approval, you want to manage and track your health authority approval of the local label, and then your dissemination of the health authority approved local label. And this is where we get that handoff to the supply chain group or your artwork team. And you need to make sure that that is also managed. And then on the artwork side, the dates to update your artwork, internally review them, disseminate, approve them and disseminate them, and then implement them on your packaging. All of this end-to-end tracking needs to be managed so that you can ensure end-to-end, you know where your label stands and whether it's compliant or not, and you're working off of the right version or not. And the loop back from each of these is just as important. If something changes in your packaging, if something changes from your health authority, and if something changes from your local label back to your CCS, all of that loop back needs to be considered appropriately. Manual tracking is very difficult. It's prone to error, it's inefficient, it's almost essentially impossible without having an army behind it. Again, let's just revisit this for a second. When you look at all of this and then we say we're doing this manually, it becomes really, really challenging, especially the components here where you're handing off from CCS to local label and from local label to your artwork. Those components and that handoff, when you're doing this manually, it's almost impossible. So you really need to consider automating the tracking and reporting portions, and it's always going to include some element of integration, because there's not one system that does it all. Sometimes your information sits in one system for your local label, your CCDS, and then your other information sits in a different system for your artwork components. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about compliance. What are the different components that we need from a compliance perspective? We have robust quality control and proofreading. You have to maintain annotated labels so you know where that statements came from and making sure that you're back and looking at the source information. You need to archive your label documentation, and that's not just your CCDS in your US or EU, your major regions, but you also have to make sure you're archiving your label documentation across all of your affiliate companies. How do you do that? What system are you using? How do you ensure standards and consistency across all of those countries with regards to archiving your labeling documentation? You need to manage your SPLs and make sure they're associated with your approvals and sitting within the same location. You need to manage your drug listings, and there's a lot going on with drug listings with regards to gathering that information and making sure it's updated when and where it needs to be. And then you need to make sure your labels are aligned globally, which comes back to your tracking of your labels. Again, just for the sake of time, and I know I'm going pretty quickly today, but I want to introduce DirectusPRO. And I know I'm not going to get a chance to do a deep dive in any one of these areas, but if you have any questions for me later, I'd be happy to answer them. And our information is provided at the end of this presentation, and we'll be happy to reach out to those who need any additional questions or a deeper dive in any one area. So I'm going to shift gears right now to talk about DirectusPRO. DirectusPRO is Red Nucleus's unique label management, tracking, and reporting solution. It's the only comprehensive global labeling system that really addresses the market gap in providing and enabling an end-to-end labeling process. And the solution was designed with that end in mind. We looked at the business process first, all the different stakeholders, all the different governing bodies and how the handoffs occur, and then we designed this system. And that's really kind of, when we look at it, that's what makes it unique, is that it enables the business process versus the reverse, which is it's a system that we hope will address the business process. This is our dashboard. It is very intuitive, it's very simple and very straightforward to use. You can see here you've got a safety signal log, your developmental core data sheet, your company core data sheet, your regional product information, tracking across all of this. You can also do proofreading, document comparison, and then some administrative tasks like an inbox where all the information goes if you have an action item that was assigned to you, etc. And then user management is another tool that allows you to just manage the securities and permissions of all the users within the system. Before I move on here to talk about some of the functionality of the system, I want to just touch briefly that while this system really focuses upfront on your company core data sheet and your RPI management, we do have open APIs that integrate and connect with your artwork solution. And that's really where an end-to-end solution would come into play. You really need a solution that cuts across the whole spectrum of your labeling so that you can truly track from that initial safety confirmation, that safety signal that was confirmed, all the way through and know that that went on to the packaging. So now let me go into here and talk about the functionality of this system. And really, this is what you're looking for, whether it's the DirectusPRO system or any other solution that you've picked. Systems should be very intuitive and user-friendly. The complexity of the labeling process is difficult and challenging enough. So you don't need to add to that by having a clunky, complex system that people don't know how to use. The system should enable you to manage workflows, track compliance to source, track versions and approvals, track compliance metrics, streamline the management of multiple simultaneous variations. This is really important because if you cannot do this, you cannot manage your labels and the branching and the complexity of the labels. So it becomes, you're just adding more complexity if you don't have a system that can allow you to do that. Track and manage health authority interactions. You need to keep all of that information together in one location, and that is making sure that your dialogue and your negotiation back and forth with your health authorities is included within your tool and tied to your label so you can trace back that history. Provide streamlined document repository with document associations. Again, that kind of goes back to, can I track the history of my label? Do I know where the statement came from and how and when and why it got into my label? Streamline the management of translations. Labeling is global. You work in a lot of different countries with a lot of different languages. You need to make sure that that translated label is associated to your label and you're including that. Track of summary of changes and streamline the label dissemination. Automate the naming and version convention. There are so many people touching this label, and if you don't automate this, everyone's naming things the way they want to. Version control is a huge risk. If you pull the wrong version of the label, or you forward the wrong label, or I'm working off of the wrong label version. So again, that's all really important. And then structured content management, which is the future of where labeling is going. When we look at DirectusPRO, DirectusPRO enables all of these different things. So structured content collaborative authoring, we're very proud to have this. It is the only labeling tool that will have this capability and allow people to collaborate and author together in a structured manner. So you can take that structured content and move that forward kind of to other really cool and very innovative ways of working, which brings me to the next point here, which is data management. You can't do data management in your labels if it's not structured. Automated naming convention, automated version control, I just talked about that. DirectusPRO enables these. Efficient RPI management, brand and CCDS management, branching without complication, end-to-end tracking and compliance management, easy and efficient document comparison, updated source label dissemination, managing document associations, automated XML and SPL conversion. Again, you cannot automate your XML and SPL conversion if you don't have structured content. Again, you cannot automate your XML and SPL conversion if you don't have a structured content management within your tool. Manage drug listings, automatic transfer of drug listing information. Again, kind of that streamlined approach to all of this. Again, I don't have the time today to go through all of the details of DirectusPRO or do a proper demo within the time slot allotted, but we're happy to give you a demo. If you're interested in learning more about our tool, just reach out to us, and our information is provided at the end. Okay, now we're going to shift gears a little bit and just talk to you briefly in the last 2 minutes that I have with you about our Industry Labeling Advisory Committee. Red Nucleus hosts and facilitates an industry labeling committee where we bring together leaders who have a role in labeling within the industry. And we've done this, the first one that we held was on May 14th. We had several companies attend with about 18 participants. The objective of the committee is to work collaboratively with other industry leaders to drive change in the industry. And the reason we do this is because we can't innovate on our own. And we acknowledge that everyone's got their own take on it. And we look at others and kind of say, are we going down the right path? Are we solving the right challenge? Are we prioritizing the correct challenges? And this is where collaboratively the committee works together to identify and highlight what's important and what needs to be changed. Not only that, but how do we change it? And what are the different game-changing solutions that we can put together in place? And so this committee works in a flexible and fast-paced environment together to put in place those game-changing solutions that will revolutionize really how life science companies manage their labels. You get to put your mark on cutting-edge technology advancements that reshape how labels are going to be developed, maintained, and updated. The focus of the May 14th Labeling Advisory Committee was really on 6 key challenge areas. One is structured content authoring, the other was version control, tracking, SPL management, drug listings, and then we were looking at kind of the bigger picture and what are the next areas that we're going to be looking at for our next Labeling Advisory Committee meeting. All of this information gets summarized in a white paper that we push out to the attendees. I'm going to talk about just a little bit of the findings and some of the things that we discussed together in the last meeting. And if you look at the image here on this side here, we do polling and we look at all of the participants participate and kind of we rank and stack and kind of prioritize different things. So we asked the question, what are the most 2 critical challenging areas within labeling? And when you look at the results, by far tracking was seen to be the most important and the most challenging one. And so again, going back to kind of some of the earlier discussions that I had, tracking seems to be coming up more and more as the most critical item here. Version control was also kind of right behind this one, with 75% of the participants saying tracking and 46% of the participants saying version control. We did a little bit of a deeper dive within tracking, and we said, well, does the industry need a change, and is it ready to change? And if we look at this, most people have said that the industry needs another solution and is ready to change, but they also felt that a change advocacy network of innovative leaders would be needed to lead that change. And what does that mean, and how do we put together this change advocacy network of life sciences leaders that can help us through this? We also asked, outside of the challenges that kind of were listed, what are the next set that we need to be looking at? And if we look at the responses here, the end-to-end labeling process, truly that end-to-end needs to be addressed, and people need to spend some time kind of putting that infrastructure in place within their organizations. Connecting to artwork, which we talked about before, that integration of your upfront and your downstream components needs to be addressed. And then label alignment and making sure that content, and it comes back to that whole tracking, that content is aligned across all of your labels globally. So again, I know time is limited today for us, but I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. And our information is provided here. And if you need anything at all, please reach out to us. We'd be happy to have a dialogue with you. Thank you.